Hey everybody, Ryan Bassam here with my buddy Kym Lloyd. We've got another Road to 100 podcast for you presented by Mallard Bay, your best guide in outfitter solutions, Benelli Firearms, the best shotguns on the market, Lacrosse Boots, keep those feet warm, RW Coolidge for the best nostalgic leather and canvas goods for the waterfowler, First Light, their new waterfowl line has been keeping us warm and dry on our hunts around the world, Apex Ammunitions from steel to tungsten, best ammo for the job, Sound Gear, protect your hearing and enjoy the hunt. Montana Knife Company, you got to eat those birds, guys. And finally, Safari Club International, our favorite conservation organization, protecting hunters' rights around the world.
Today, we have special guest Paul Sawyer, co-founder of Whitetail Properties, and surprisingly, Paul's love for duck hunting rivals his passion for whitetails. From launching a duck hunting show back in the day where not many people were even thinking of filming ducks, to his journey co-founding Whitetail Properties, Paul shares some truly helpful words for those who seek financial success and, more importantly, personal and life success. So stay tuned for another Road to 100 podcast. In the heart of every waterfowl hunter, there's a memory where it all began. For us, the waterfowl life started in the southern United States in the flooded timbers and expansive marshland. But as our journey unfolded, the quest for waterfowl led us beyond our home. The passion eventually takes us to different flyways, different countries, and beyond. We discovered that the culture of waterfowl transcends borders. And so, a daring dream took root, a dream to hunt 100 different species of waterfowl across the globe. We wanted to share the story of adventure and encounters with fellow hunters, each sharing the same passion as us. The landscapes will change, the species will vary, but the passion remains the same. One dream, a long road, 100 species. This is the Road to 100.
All right, everybody, welcome to another podcast here with the crew, Road to 100. We've got a special guest with us today, the notorious Paul Sawyer from Whitetail Properties. We've had a fun few days, which we can chat a little bit about, but as always, we're going to kick it off with a little game I like to call rapid fire. So in 60 seconds or less, I'm just going to start peppering you with questions, buddy.
Well, before you do that, the notorious Paul Sawyer?
Yeah. Oh,
okay.
Yeah.
I'll take it.
Oh, and we're going to get into some stories that I think will prove my point here.
Okay.
Okay.
All
Fair
right.
enough, right?
Right.
Okay. Awesome.
Rapid fire.
Let's do this. Invisibility or super strength?
That's a tough one. And I can't choose both.
Nope.
I would go with super strength, I think.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Whitetail or waterfowl?
Waterfowl.
Okay.
Ooh.
TV series or movies?
Probably a really good TV series.
Okay.
Yeah.
I dig that. Yeah.
Yep.
20 gauge or 12 gauge?
12 gauge.
Why can't we tickle ourselves?
I've never thought of that.
Right?
I suppose we could. Yeah.
That would be a weird thing.
It'd be a little weird, right?
Would to tickle yourself?
We can try it later. Football or baseball?
Football, 100%, dude.
I agree with that.
Ninja or pirates?
Ninja. Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah, that's
That-
why
that
I went.
was
That's why I
quick.
went with super strength, because I'm sort of a ninja already, which is invisibility thing, you know. So
Yeah.
I love it. All right. Bow or rifle?
probably rifle.
Okay. Name one of the 7 dwarves.
Sleepy.
Batman or Superman?
Batman.
Done. All right.
Nice. That was good.
I don't know
That
what
was
personality profile that proves, but
good. Yeah.
there it is.
He proves he's notorious. That's what it is. You passed the
Exactly.
notorious test.
Exactly. I love it. Awesome, buddy. Well,
Yeah,
we're
because
super stoked to have
notorious PSS isn't as cool as notorious BIG,
you. That's
because it
Yeah.
just doesn't have the ring. But
Yeah.
we'll go with it.
We'll roll with it. We'll roll with it. Well, I'm super stoked to have you on. I think you have an incredible story, and so I'm really excited to kind of dig into it. And before most people hear Whitetail Properties and they think about this massively successful real estate company that you've been a part of. But I want to peel back the layers. I want to get more into kind of where you got started as a hunter, what it was like growing up for you. What was the path that kind of led you to a lot of the success that you've had today, and you chose waterfowl over whitetail. So like that love for waterfowl is something that we all share, which is why we're here doing this hunt together, and would love to dig into that as well. And I'm sure we'll have a lot of fun conversations over the next hour or so. But give us the nickel tour. Like, tell me about little Paul Sawyer.
Okay, well, so you said peel back the layers of the onion, and just the couple things that you just said, if we peeled that as far back as you wanted to go, this would be like a 7-part podcast
That's actually
series.
really, really true. And maybe one day we have to like seriously do that.
So I think I'm going to start with why I'm here, why I'm on the couch with you guys. So, we're in Alberta, Canada right now, and my passion forever was waterfowl. Okay. In the past 17 years, chasing big whitetails has consumed me, and I haven't had the chance to hunt waterfowl very much.
Yeah.
So here we are, 17 years later, and I'm in Canada for the first time. And that's why I'm on the couch with you guys, which is super cool for me, because there is a day that if you would have told me that I wouldn't own a black lab and that I wouldn't shoot a duck and I wouldn't shoot a goose or I wouldn't have gone to Canada, I would have told you you are completely crazy, right? Like you need to get some help, because I never envisioned that for my life, because waterfowl was all consuming for me. And although I enjoyed turkey hunting and I enjoyed whitetail hunting, I mean, what I really did was waterfowl hunt. And so for me, this is a big moment and I don't want to be over dramatic, but it is, because I've come full circle and I'm back in Canada.
Yeah.
It's
pretty cool.
And it's where I got my start. So to answer your question, young Paul Sawyer, I didn't grow up in a hunting family.
Gotcha.
And a lot of people that have this passion, I'm thinking about who we're hunting with, a hunter and his dad. I mean, that's ingrained from infancy, right? Like from when he's a little baby, he's already. And the thing that happened for me is, although I didn't grow up as a hunter, I grew up on a lake in Minnesota, and my dad was a fisherman. So I had a love for fishing. And one of the best things that ever happened to me as a young man is that when I was 12 or 13, I got a 12-foot aluminum craft boat and a 5.5 horse Johnson motor. Now this seahorse is the size of what would be a 40-horse motor today.
Right.
You know what I mean? And my little pencil arms, I could barely pick this thing up. In order to move it around, I had to put it in a wheelbarrow to move it around, right?
Right.
But to me, you guys, that changed everything, because what it did is it instilled ownership, responsibility, and it opened up a whole new world to me, right? To that point, it was either my mom in the minivan or a bicycle, but the boat was a whole different thing. And so that opened up this whole new world for me, and it was really life-changing in a lot of ways. I already touched on the fact that it gave me this like sense of responsibility that I had never had before. And I don't know if that was the idea.
Sure.
Initially, I don't know if it was this like Dr. Phil level parenting, but that was one of the most pivotal moments for me. And it leads back to how we get on this couch. So I grew up in this fishing family. My dad loves to fish, so we fish. Don't really get to hunt. I have cousins that hunt. I'm kind of exposed to it on the fringe like that, but it wasn't until I got to high school when I met a kid, ended up becoming my best friend. His name's Dave Ham, and his dad took me and Dave waterfowl hunting in Carlos Avery in Minnesota, which is public. And on my first duck hunt, you guys, I was totally hooked. Totally hooked. And so you're saying, well, what does that have to do with fishing? Well, his dad hunted but didn't fish. My dad fished but didn't hunt. We ended up going to this private school in the city, and we were the only two people in the whole school that had any interest in the outdoors. In fact, we were kind of like, at that time, this is in the 90s, I won't say we were looked at as like geeks, but it was definitely on the fringe. It was on the outside, right, of what everybody else was doing. And, at that time, there was this Saturday Night Live skit that made fun of fishing. And so a lot of the kids in my class, they would make fun of us, right? Like, not like, bully make fun of, but to the point where it was just like not something they were interested. So here we got these two kids, and we have a shared passion for the outdoors. So I take him fishing, he takes me hunting. And without that, I call it these fine lines. There are these fine strings of steel, right, that bind us. All these little things that happen in your life that if that doesn't happen, then I'm not sitting here. And there's a bunch of them, right? The spider web.
Exactly. Just small little course corrections that get you to where you're at currently in life.
So we're in Carlos Avery. It's public hunting. We got to get there early. There's no motors, so we paddle out, and there's the three of us in this boat. And I just remember, I can still remember the sight. It's dark, but I can hear in the distance. I never heard that before. And the hair on the back of my neck stands up, right? I can feel my canines dropping, right? And we haven't even fired a shot yet. And so I've got this single, like a lot of guys, I got a single shot 12 gauge, that breaks open. And I can't remember how many ducks we shot that day. We did shoot duck, but that doesn't matter. Right. I was hooked. Yeah. It was being in the waders. It was being kind of cold. It was sipping coffee that I really didn't even like, but it was just that whole experience. It changed my life. That one event. And then from that day, in short order, back then, and this may be hard to relate to, again, this is in the 1990s, we would bring a pickup truck with decoys, shotguns, everything. We'd bring that to school.
Right.
Like if you did that today, you'd be, who knows what would happen. But the moment that school was out, or we'd hunt before, it just became this consuming thing, even in adolescence.
Sure. I love that story. I feel like there's a lot of similar stories out there that a lot of people can relate to, because it doesn't matter really how you initially got introduced to hunting, whether it was on your own, through a friend, through your own dad, whatever. But there's that one moment typically amongst all hunters where it's like, bam, that's their aha moment. That's their, I'm addicted to this moment. And it's interesting where it can take you.
Well, and you guys, not the listeners haven't, but some of you know me well, and that high energy. Imagine when I was 16.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And if
just
it wasn't
Energizer Bunny.
And if it wasn't for hunting and being able to immerse myself so deep into something, I don't know. And I'm not saying I would have been in a gang or a drug dealer, but I certainly would. It gave me focus. It gave me that renewed passion. So you got the getting the boat and fishing, and then you had this hunting. Sure. and that expanded into then getting into bow hunting. I'd never done that before, and I started bow hunting whitetails. And
how soon? So let's look at that for a second. So you have this amazing waterfowl experience, like you're fully addicted, you love it. What were the next few years like for hunting for you? Were you mainly focused on waterfowl? Did you start doing some whitetail hunting?
No, it was just.
What did that look like?
And it's funny because we're bouncing back and forth, between me and my buddy. Because then I'm like, "You want to go ice fishing?" He's like, "Yeah." And so we built an ice house in my parents' garage. And for those people listening that don't know what an ice house is that at that time it was plywood on 4x4 skids. We pulled behind a snowmobile with some holes in the floor with a wood burning stove. We cut holes in the ice, and we were catching fish through the ice. So I'm taking him ice fishing, and then he goes, "Hey man, you want to go bow hunting?" I said, "Absolutely. I know nothing about it." So at that point he's like, "Here's a jacket, here's my old bow, here's all this." So we've got this going back and forth to where so that takes us to graduating from high school. And then once and what's changed so much, and it blows my mind, of what we were doing at 17, 18, 19 years old. If I were to ask our boys today to do the same things, and remember, dude, we didn't have an iPhone with Google Maps. Mm-hmm. Yeah. We used a atlas, right? And, sure. and when I would leave, my mom would give me a fistful of quarters so you could call from a payphone. But so here we are, 19 years old. Our first adventure to Canada, we literally opened up this map. We saw this great big marsh. It said Delta Marsh. And of course, we're marsh hunters. We're from Minnesota. So we're like, we're just going to go there. We don't know anybody. And we just drove.
Sure.
Right? And we didn't know about crossing the border. This is pre 9/11, so you don't need a passport.
Yeah.
If you had a driver's license. We just drove to Canada. We had zero plan, and we just and being from Minnesota where everything is like every management area's got a sign, and you go here and do there. We just thought there was going to be this great big sign that said Delta Marsh, right? And there's going to be there's going to be a boat ramp, and come to find out, it's 90,000 acres. You know what I mean?
Right.
So we just drove to some point, and we ended up. We didn't have money to stay in a hotel, so we brought tents and we camped out. And just like how cool people are in Canada, think about 25 years ago. I mean, this place that we camp at, all of a sudden, literally just picking a campground, just because it was close to the marsh, we end up meeting these people, and they're like, yeah, you can hunt here and go over here, and here's how you get to the marsh. And in our first trip, right?
Yeah. Right.
But again, we're
Cool.
just kids. Yeah. We're up there there's no cell phone, and we're just drawing on, making notes on maps, and there wasn't OnX, I guess what I'm trying to say is that sometimes, we just really limit ourselves, and as parents, sometimes we are very concerned about, what are our kids going to do? But one of the best things you can do is let them go.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
Get some experience. You're going to be okay. And you and I were having conversations about, and this is classic notorious Paul. I'm going in 17 different directions, but you and I are talking about Mexico, right?
Yep.
And what is the first thing people say about Mexico? It isn't how cool is the hunting, how do you hunt, what kind of birds you hunt. They say, is it dangerous?
Is it dangerous? Yeah. Oh, are you sure?
Yeah. Right. Is it dangerous? Everything is dangerous. Right. The most dangerous thing all of us do every single day is drive a car.
Absolutely.
Statistically, look at it. If you're going skydiving, you've got a way better chance of being in a car accident on the way to skydiving than you do hitting the pavement, right?
Sure.
You're probably not going to. But anyways, that was the early years. They led us to Manitoba. We were still in this marsh hunting, waders, water, small boats. That was our paradigm. That's what we learned in Minnesota. So we went and we found that in Manitoba. At that point, we had never, ever field hunted before. Mm-hmm. So we end up back, we fast forward to the fall. We end up at this campground, and we're doing the thing, man. We don't have the money to have all the fancy things. So we've got 3-wheelers. Literally 3-wheelers that we've...
They don't even make those anymore, do they?
And they were old at that time. I mean, these are the 80s, 80s 3-wheelers.
Right.
We wanted 4-wheelers, but we didn't have the money for them, so we had 3-wheelers. We'd put chains on them because that's what we did ice fishing, which happens to work really good in muck and mud and everything else. And we would take a tow strap and we'd pull our boats through to get to the marsh. Right. So at that point, that's all we're doing is we're just that real classic waterfowl hunting, over water. We haven't hunted we haven't done any field hunting. We know it exists, but we just haven't done it because we didn't have the decoys. We didn't have a way to hide. We didn't have all these things. But here we are back at this campground, and what happens? And this is what's so cool about what we do. There's some guys that are probably 5, 10 years older than us, and they're up there snow goose hunting, and they said, come with us.
Yeah.
Isn't that cool?
That's awesome. And, I love hearing that. I wish we still heard more of that. In fact, I think it's kind of sad because I remember when I first started hunting, it was much more of a communal, like accepting, like, hey man, well, yeah, just come hunt with us, or I would love to teach you this. I don't think that we have that anymore. Unfortunately, I don't know that happens anymore. It
doesn't. And I don't know why.
But what if they wouldn't have done that? I mean, obviously you still would have loved it.
Well, it even gets better than that.
But it opens doors for you.
Yeah, so these guys, they take us field hunting for the first time. We're hunting over, they made all their own decoys. They're snow decoys that are cut out with a skill saw and painted, right? Whites and blues and little pink beaks. And we're out there and they've got like a, no pun intended here, the real estate sign, that they just drove it in the ground like that, right? Like with a metal stake. And so we go in and we do that. And then at that same campground, we meet another group of guys that are in the camp. And here's the mind-blowing thing. They're like, let us show you some spots.
Yeah.
You know, and they're like, here's a good spot. Here's a good spot. They just didn't point on a map. They're like,
Right.
we'll take you, you know,
Show
come on.
you exactly where
Yeah.
Yeah.
And set up here for golden eyes, you know, and this is a cool little bay for mallards, you know, when they're coming back from the fields. And so we had all these, and those guys were even older, but here they are just taking us in, you know,
Sure.
and really showing us the ropes.
Right.
So yeah, you know, I haven't really reflected on that. I mean, I haven't told that story in so long or even thought about it that I haven't reflected on it to think about what you just said, that now it's more of this, like, this is mine, right? Like, these are my spots. These are my ducks, or even worse, these are my deer, right?
Sure.
No, they're not. They're God's deer. You know, they can
Exactly.
go wherever they want. Anyways. But yeah, so, and I don't know what caused that. I don't know if it was social media. I don't know if it was, you know, the popularity of making videos and doing all those things. I don't know if it
The
became
commercialization.
a contest.
Sheer numbers.
Yeah.
maybe.
Well, I mean,
the more you see, like that happens the first time, but then new kids show up the next day and the next day and the next day. You're
Right.
like, oh my gosh, it's an influx. Like
Exactly.
we were talking about this at dinner the other night. My experience into hunting on public lands
The
was
exact
the
opposite.
exact opposite.
Exact opposite.
I was almost forced out of it. I was just a kid, son of a basketball coach, trying to figure it out. Show up to a boat ramp and I get made fun of for my rig, and you know, you're doing this wrong, and I was just happy I got my one pass over wood duck. You know, what they should have done in that situation, I think, is that exact same thing. Like, hey man, that's wrong, let's take you. And like, I don't have to come back to your spot, I don't have to be there, but like, to take a kid in, that's obviously, I mean, you can take one look at me at that point. I was wearing like you know, a basketball hoodie, my team basketball hoodie, and, you know, just trying to hide. And that would have been so simple for them and would have expedited my process so much. You know, having people like mentors like that, like you said, growing up without somebody, like your dad isn't Hunter's dad. He doesn't take you out, show you the ropes. It's an intimidating thing for a kid to first start without some kind of mentor. And I think we do need a lot more of that in this industry. For
No,
sure.
absolutely. I think it's sad that, you know, I people don't have experiences like what Paul just shared. I think, you know, we've lost that over time. The commercialization of hunting is, you know, there's good, bad, and ugly, and we see all of it, unfortunately. But, you know, I think that it shapes the direction we head with it. Fortunately, Kimes, despite having a bad experience coming into it, he's still getting after it today. But so Paul, like, I feel like, you know, with that kind of positive experience and how that kind of shaped your mindset around waterfowl hunting and developing that love for it. For me, when I fell in love with it, I was like, okay, how do I afford to keep doing this? And so, if I'm not mistaken, you didn't go to college, correct?
I didn't. No.
And so so you have this amazing experience, you fall in love with waterfowl hunting, have a buddy who is gracious enough, and his dad's gracious enough to help, you know, scale that experience within the outdoors and love for it beyond just fishing, right? But after high school, what was your first job? Like, if it were me, I'd be like, all right, how do I afford to do this more? How do I go deeper, right?
Right. Well, so, and let me say one thing before we go into that. We were talking about negative experience that you had, and then the positive experience I had. Everybody that's listening to this has to realize that unless you want to, in the next 20 years, embrace the European model of hunting, hunter recruitment is the number one issue all of us face.
Sure.
Every single one. You know, so whatever those opportunities are, let's break the cycle.
Right.
Let's break the cycle. Stop saying, you know, stop making this a competition, and realize that getting more people involved and passionate about what we do is how our sport is going to continue. It's how our kids are going to enjoy the things we do.
Right. Well, and I think you bring up a good point. I think some people that are watching or listening to this may not realize, well, what is going on in Europe, and that European model, essentially, like the gun control laws that are in place, the restrictions against hunting. I mean, if you're not an elitist within society and the 1%ers of the world, as far as like financially,
right,
you really don't have much of an opportunity to do it in most European countries. The barrier to entry is just too great to overcome for the common, you know, citizen over there.
Yeah, you better be in the lucky sperm club. If
exactly,
you want to,
that's 100% it. And so we're in a place, and I've been, you know, blessed to kind of go and see and do things all over the world. Like, There is no greater opportunity. There's not a place in the world where we have the resources at our disposal and the ease of entry into exploring the world of hunting like we do here in the United States. And it's kind of heartbreaking to see people take this, macho elitist mentality of I'm better than everybody, you all suck, and like make people feel horrible about their experiences in the outdoors, instead of turning it into a positive and back to the hunter recruitment thing, making sure that we are passing this on and leaving it better than we found it. And so it's definitely something for most people listening. I hope you reflect on it,
Yeah. And that's why I felt like we needed to digress before we move forward.
Fair point.
And there are a million opportunities, to get people involved, whether you teach somebody how to shoot a bow. You don't necessarily have to take somebody hunting to get them excited about it. You can tell them stories. Right. You can teach them the woodsman skills. Teach them how to shoot a bow. Teach them how to blow a duck call. I think oftentimes people are frozen because they say, "Well, how can I help? What can I do?" There's every single person. You have your own story. You have your own opportunity to do something to get people involved. So I think that's something we need to take very, very serious. So
for sure.
I get out of high school, and this is a super cool story. So my buddy that got me involved took me on my first waterfowl hunt, taught me how to bow hunt. He had this idea, and it was just, and we've all had them, especially when we're young, where we're just kind of kicking rocks. And he's like, we were huge Duck Commander fans, and this is VHS time. I know you don't even know what it is, but it was this box and then you put a rectangle in the box that used to sit on top of the TV.
Sometimes it even have a remote.
Yeah, and you go, when you wanted to fast forward, it was really. I'll show you sometime. So we loved watching Duck Commander, and at that time there were two real big ones. There was Duck Commander and there was Tim Grounds. And it's so funny because maybe I was thinking about doing the podcast tonight, why I've been saying it so much over the past couple of days, but I kept saying, get down and cover up.
Yeah.
Because that was Tim Grounds' first video, right? And I must have watched that VHS 100 times, and the Duck Commander stuff maybe 200, right? Like, and we would just watch them. And this is pre-Outdoor Channel, right? This is like, again, I don't even know if you know about TNN. That's when it's on. The only outdoor stuff's on TNN, and it's on at 7:00 on Sunday morning. And I couldn't watch it because I had to go to church. But anyways, so this mainly the way we're consuming. Hunting, I guess you'd call content or media at that time is VHS. So you go to the store, you buy one, you watch it. And so my buddy Dave, he just has this idea where he says, we should make videos because nobody is doing what we're doing. Grounds is in Illinois, hunting almost 99% field hunting for Canada geese. Right. And then you got Phil in Louisiana doing his crazy stuff, but there's nobody doing what we're doing, like marsh hunting and really that traveling waterfowler, right? Because Phil was just in Louisiana and Tim was just in Illinois. There wasn't anybody hooking up a trailer, grabbing some boats, throwing some full body, some Bigfoots in the trailer. Nobody was doing that.
Yeah.
And he was just like, I think it could be really cool. Well, it's like a lot of ideas. It simmers, and it just simmers. And we would find ourselves, sitting in these duck boats, in between ducks flying, just like fantasizing about it. We do this, and it would be called that, and we'll get a camera, and it'd be, but none of us had any money, so it didn't matter, right? we didn't have any capital. So
sure.
After, a couple different jobs, I end up in the mortgage lending industry, and that is in 1996. And from 1996 to 2005, I was in the mortgage lending business, and it would seem like that was strategic, but honestly, I was just at the right place at the right time. Interest rates for the last 30 years have been high. I get involved in the lending business right when interest rates are dropping, And guys, there was a moment, 97, 98, 99, our business plan was open the phone book and call somebody. It wasn't that hard. Everybody's interest rates were at 8 and 9%. Rates are at 5%. It was what's called a refi boom. And why is that important? Because to a certain degree, it was like printing cash.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just...
You're crazy not to...
Oh, man, it was the best time to be in that business. And the way that we did business, we were a mortgage broker. So what we would do is we would write loans, and then somebody else would underwrite them and then sell them off, and we got paid a commission to do it. Right. And as crazy as it sounds, the way we were doing business at that time is literally illegal today. We weren't doing anything wrong, but I'm just saying over time, sometimes things are so lucrative that the government doesn't like it. Right? Like I'm just calling a spade a spade. They don't like it, so we're going to legislate it anyways. So we get this business. I get in the mortgage business, and I was really good at it.
Right.
So very quickly, the owner of the mortgage company that I was working at said, you're very valuable to us. We'd like to make you a partner. So I become a partner at that firm, still cranking, and then I meet a guy. His name is Greg Bertagnoli. He becomes my business partner later in life. We start our own brokerage. And we built it up to where we had about 150 loan reps. And there is a moral to this story. So we build it up, and it is a great business from a money-making standpoint. But it's the only thing I liked about it, guys. I hated the business.
Sure.
It's so cutthroat. Super high intensity level, a lot of stress. And when rates are low, everybody was selling the same products, so it's very easy to be marginalized and turned into a commodity. So there's this hyper competition, and you really had to watch the market close so you could advise your clients. Anyways, so I had created some income, right? Like I had some discretionary income. And so then I said, let's do these waterfall videos. Yeah. Like I've got some money now. Like this dream.
We can realize the dream now.
Yeah, this dream can be real,
Yeah.
right? And the saddest part of this story, and maybe he'll listen to this, maybe he won't, I don't know. But my buddy that got me involved, I went to him. We met in my house, 3 of us that had the idea that always fantasized. And I said, let's do this, man. And he said no. I mean, not like no, but...
He couldn't, the circumstances in life wouldn't allow him to do it.
Travel
at that time.
And go, and hey, I'll put up the, you can do sweat equity. I'll put up the dough.
Right. Bummer.
A true startup.
But hey, man, you don't,
Yeah, I mean,
it bums me out. But there's nothing you can't drag people.
No,
I can't. I couldn't.
They got to be willing to take the risk and make some sacrifices and make the jump with you at some level.
So now I've got this mortgage business cranking. We buy a camera, and it's a funny story.
Yeah, what? Hold on a second. Kaim, you probably don't even know what this is. Well, what camera?
Yeah, let's hear it.
We bought, this is really cool. You're going to like this because you don't even know this.
I probably don't.
We bought an XL1, Canon XL1. Ring a bell?
Nope.
It looks like something out of
Is
Star
it like
Trek.
this big, like a bazooka?
It wasn't that. It wasn't a DSR, but
Yeah.
it was shoulder mounted.
Right.
It took little tapes that popped out. We bought that camera from Jeff Foyles.
Oh, did you really? Because y'all were buddies.
Well, no, we really
Y'all were
didn't know
buddies
him
yet?
at that time.
Oh, okay.
No, I mean, we had met him at Game Fair. And the thing about me is that if I'm going to do something, I've always been like this. If I'm going to do something, I study. I didn't go to college, but I didn't need to.
Yeah.
Because I only studied what I was interested in and what I wanted to master.
Right.
I'm not going to go to college and study a bunch of nonsense to get a degree where the bulk of your studies, 80% of it was what they call whatever. It doesn't even apply.
Right.
So I immersed myself, right? Just like when I got in the mortgage lending business, man, I knew it, man. I knew that bond market. You would have thought I was an econ grad, but I wasn't. Yeah. And I didn't know anything outside of bonds. Don't ask me, but I understood that market intuitively, very, very quickly. I did the same thing when we really decided we wanted to do these videos,
Right.
I started talking to people. So I'm at Game Fair in Minnesota, and Jeff Foyles is in his booth, and I just walk up to him like an idiot and just tell him, I want to do videos like you do. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, I just want to do them. And so I'm asking him, how did you get into it? How, all this. And he's like, hey, I got a camera for sale, you know? And right. And so he tells me how much it is, and we leave Game Fair, whatever. He says it's at my shop. We drive all the way. I have no idea. And think of where his shop is.
Yeah.
Dude, it's where Whitetail Properties started.
Right. Which is cool.
So crazy.
So cool.
Has nothing to, the two don't have anything
Right.
to do with each other.
Yeah.
But so we drive all the way to Pleasant Hill, which is, by the way, where my beautiful bride and I are building our house right now. We drive all the way to Pleasant Hill, and we buy this camera. And now that we bought this camera from Jeff, now we've got this kind of like guru insider that helps us.
That's cool.
As well. Like he literally, and imagine, Jeff, he's showing us how to turn the camera on, which now looking back is just like hilarious, right? But so he sells us this camera. We go back. And we don't have any outlet. We don't have sponsors. We don't have anything, but we have this camera.
Right.
And we just start recording what we do, right? Like, we weren't doing interviews or anything. It's just like we did what you guys do. We switch off. We were just switching the camera, went from we were just switching off filming and we were laying down footage that was just very unique because we're hunting South Dakota, we're hunting North Dakota, we're hunting Saskatchewan, we're hunting Manitoba. We're still not seeing this footage out there, right? It's still kind of just like super centralized. And so I decided I want to buy a dog. And that's the natural thing, right? Got some money, I'm going to buy this dog. And I knew the reason I waited, guys, is I knew that when I bought a dog, I knew I wanted a great dog. And so I had watched Tom Dokken as I'm growing in my love for the outdoors. I'm watching Tom at Game Fair and different things, right? And his seminars and everything. And I told myself, when I buy a dog, I'm buying a dog from Tom Dokken.
And at the time, he was one of the best, in my opinion.
He probably still is. And quite honestly,
so.
if people would be willing to submit their egos and really tell, most people what they're doing today is a version of what Tom did.
It's based on all his training regimes that he would use to train dogs with, for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. Right? Like, a lot of people don't want to give him credit for a variety of reasons.
But it's probably true.
Whatever. It is. Yeah. So stop it.
Knock it off.
That's not the same guy that did like Gun Dog and Water Dog and those videos.
No, different. Yeah.
That is crazy though. I had a Springer Spaniel when I was in my period of like trying to grow into waterfowling, and I just wanted a Springer, and I just started Googling, and then based on the reviews, like it's a different generation, right? But I ended up with the Tom Dokken ebook. Like, and that's how I trained my dog. And it's like a totally different generation, but I was like, dude's legit. And I was like, old book, but it's legit.
It's legit.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, he's a dog whisperer, man. I've never seen anybody that
cool.
is, and his level of patience is like absolutely phenomenal.
But what's cool is like your origins and your own journey into waterfowl, and then into now I'm going to create content like back in the day, create content for waterfowl, to be hooked up with somebody like Jeff and then Tom and be able to get that start. So did you get a dog from him?
Yeah. So, and I knew like I wanted one of Tom's dogs, right? Like of his breeding, his line, because my best dog wasn't that much different than Hank.
Right.
But a little faster.
Sure.
He was a little faster.
Right.
But I didn't want these hard charging field trial dogs. I wanted a hunting dog.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like I didn't want one. I wanted a Cadillac, not a NASCAR.
Sure.
And that's what I got from Tom. And so, I did everything Tom told me to. I mean, it was like the 10 Commandments, whatever it was. And I did all, one of the coolest things Tom does when he starts a dog for you is he had 3 levels of training, and I don't remember what they were.
Right.
But you go, so you get you send your dog off. He's gone for a while with Tom. Then you go there. You spend a whole day working with the dog, and Tom's showing you how. Then you take him home for X amount of time. Then he goes back for intermediate. Right. Well, so I did all that and all the drills and everything. And so Tom could tell that I was like way into it. And again, guys, this is not. I can't text him at that time because texting doesn't even exist.
Right.
So I would call the dude. Right. Now, at some point, he's probably like, this guy's crazy, right? But I would just call him on the phone and he would take his time. And so, and again, this is that fine thread of steel, right? So I'm at Dawkins picking up my dog from being finished, right? He's done.
Right.
Super proud. I'm a dog dad at that point, right? Like, which I think is totally ridiculous, but I'll call myself that, right?
Yeah.
That wasn't a thing in the 90s, by the way.
Yeah.
So if
There's
you
something about having a dog that's finished, I will say. Like, I mean,
yeah.
it is a great feeling to know that that's how good they are.
So I'm at Dawkins picking up my dog, and he's got these signs and he's got these cedar post fences. You know, they're decorative, but it's just kind of like where you pull up, and he's got this sign that says, keep your dog on a leash at all times, in and out, right? And there's a yellow lab peeing on the post that has this sign off his leash. And there's a guy shooting photography of it. Who do you think that guy was? Who do you think's taking that picture of this dog peeing on the fence?
Gosh, I mean, at this point, we were covering all the names. Was it Fred Zink?
Lee Chose.
Oh, was it really?
It's Chose. Chose is shooting that.
Of course, it's a freaking, legendary photographer.
And so in all these conversations, I've told Tom
right,
that we're making these videos.
That's cool.
Right? And so then I'm in the parking lot. I have no idea. And
You
Chose
don't-
does not look like he does today, you guys.
He didn't have the long hair?
No, the
really?
dude, he wore pressed chinos with Filson shirts. He looked like somebody that was going to sell you life insurance.
Was he clean shaved?
Yeah, clean shaved. Yeah, I mean, just buttoned up. I mean, just a Filson model is what. So he's shooting, leather bags, all that.
Yeah.
And then Dawkins says to me, literally in the parking lot, you guys think about this for a second. In the parking lot, says, "Hey, you need to meet. Let me introduce you to this photographer." So he takes me over, introduces me to Lee. I tell him that I'm doing these videos and, what we're doing and how excited we were. And I had this XL1, which at the time you could click open the viewfinder and it's literally this big, So for you listening, it's like 2x2.
Right.
Yeah.
Color screen, which is horrible, by the way, but and it's this big. So I go get my camera because I'm so fired up, and I flip open that viewfinder and I hit play, and I let Lee watch this little viewfinder of the beautiful crimson sunset. Well, a lot like this, I even got it on my arm, but this crimson sunrise. Excuse me. We're on this little water hole in South Dakota, and the greenheads are they're doing the, just
right.
I mean, just two of us standing in cattails. Just pounding, just picking out the drakes. Boom, 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 boom. And so he watches it, and he looks at me, and he goes, that's some of the best waterfall footage I've ever seen. Yeah. He says, you should come to the farm sometime. We need to talk, right? Yeah. And I don't even really know who this is. And unbeknownst to me, Lee's shooting his coffee table book that everybody knows just about labs or whatever it's called. That's what he was shooting at the time, right? Like this iconic waterfowl book, right? Like he's shooting it. I have no idea. I'm just like, okay, he wants me. And so I'm like, well, I'm going to go to this farm, So I show up with all these tapes and we just start watching them, and I'll never forget when I walked in, I saw this like Filson buttoned up dude. And I'm thinking he's going to be like really serious. We're going to walk in. He's going to ask me if I want to drink wine, and we're going to be listening to classical music, right? And we walk in the door, and he goes, "You want a cup of coffee?" And I'm like, "Absolutely, I do." And he's got Ludacris playing on his iMac. At the time, was that bubble iMac? It was blue, with the speakers that went up the side with the three. Yeah. He's got Luda playing. I carry my condoms in a big ass sack. And I was like, I did not expect that. Right, like that was not the sense of what I was getting. Exactly. Right, yeah. But this dude's badass, right? And so we're watching the videos, and he's like, "Man, you guys can do something with this." and to be validated, like he, you know, at that time, we're looking at all his, he says, let me show you some of my work, right?
Sure.
And so he's got the light board and the slides. So we're looking at the slides on the light board, and I'm like, wow. I mean, if this dude thinks it's good, I mean, these images are incredible.
And for those who don't know who Lee is, like, he's probably one of the most, accomplished photographers within the commercial side of the hunting industry, not just waterfowl, but even in other pursuits at this point too. I mean, for decades now.
Right. He has more covers of Ducks Unlimited than
anybody else. Just an absolute legend and very, very good at what he does. So that's, yes, to your point, like, to get that affirmation from somebody like that, who is, you know, maybe one of the best creatives in the game. Yeah, that's a big deal.
And again, the theme, what we're talking about so far, in my opinion, is being helped along the way.
Yes.
So if your ego ever gets so big and you say, I did this, no, you didn't.
No.
There is no way you can do anything of any substance on your own.
No, absolutely.
You have to have help.
I mean, we've talked about this before, guys. It's like, team is everything.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have a team, and that could look, you know, and feel like different things, but nobody ever just puts the weight of the world on their back and carries through without some sort of support from somebody at some level, and helps them get across that finish line.
So we're watching the videos, and he's saying, man, you could really do something with this. He says, I'll tell you what, I'll make you a logo. You want me to make you a logo? And I don't know I'm not grasping. I don't know who this dude is.
Right.
You know what I mean? I don't know all the brands that he's created at the time, right?
Sure.
And I'm like, yeah. And so he says, well, what's the name of your company? And I said, and my buddy Dave, the dude who declined to he came up with the name Knock 'em Down Productions. Mm-hmm. And Lee says, name's pretty stupid, but he said, we'll go with it, right? like he goes, if it were me, I'd do something different. But guys, we fantasize so much about this.
Yeah.
We've imagined, right?
Right.
And so it can't be anything other than that.
Right.
And hindsight being 2020, he was 100% correct.
Oh, for sure.
Horrible name. But we go with Knock M, you know, like an apostrophe M down Productions. Well, he creates this imagery and this logo that is way, way better than that name. That name is like what you're thinking about, something on Amazon, right? And it was just absolutely incredible. So we get that, and he's now coaching us on the brand and the marketing side of things. And then he says, look, if you're serious about this, you need to go to the industry trade show. Have you ever been? And I said, no, I haven't. And quite honestly, dude, I'm so busy between trying to make these videos and my mortgage practice, there's no way I can go. And then he goes, well, it is in Las Vegas. He said, all right. I said, all right, I'll go. So he goes, it's called the SHOT Show.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so again, you guys, now I'm walking in the door, and I've got Tom Dokken, I've got Lee Chose taking me around and introducing me to people, man.
There's not a better situation to be in.
No.
Yeah.
And I won't bore the listeners nor you guys, all the people that he introduced me to.
Connected you to a lot of people at that point.
The most important one at the time was Ron Latshaw.
Yeah.
You know, Ron owns Final Approach at that time, and he's the OG behind ground blinds. Nobody else. I mean, at that time, there was nobody else making them. Mm-hmm. It was. And this is before,
those were the original layout blinds. And
yes, this is before Avery comes out with the finisher.
Right.
I mean, the finisher doesn't come out for probably 3 or 4 years after when I'm talking. So Ron's got this one that's as big as this couch.
Yeah.
It was called the Eliminator.
I remember it.
You know what I mean?
I remember it. Yeah.
Like, you could get your whole family in there now. I mean, but you know, at the time there was nothing there. You know, there wasn't anything out that put you in the middle of the field. So it really didn't matter how big they were, and we didn't even know to grass them in. That wasn't even a thing. Right. You just sat in the middle of the field, you know, with these doors closed, and it worked so well because birds were not used to at that time. The reason A-frames are working so good today, you guys, is because birds are used to getting shot in the middle of the field now. But before Ron, if you didn't have a pit, right? If you didn't have a pit in the ground, there was really no effective way. Mm-hmm. But that worked so well, and they caught on quickly, just like spinning wings or anything else. Exactly. They did, but you could get out in the middle of the field in this great big spaceship thing. Anyways, but Ron is a really, really important part of the story down the way. So with the help of Lee pointing us in the right directions, connecting us with some other people, we put our first video together.
Right.
And it was called Knock 'em Down Presents Chasing the Flight, Volume 1. So we put that out, and, we've got a list of sponsors that I could not be more proud of at the time. And as we are in our infancy stage in making these DVDs, that is when the Outdoor Channel and Sportsman Channel, all that launched. They're taking off, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, it's the first couple seasons of actual like satellite cable dedicated sporting content. So we put out Chasing the Flight. There was a magazine and a website called waterfowler.com. These two are probably too young. I'm sure you remember. And again, waterfowler.com contacts us and says, hey, man, we want to give Chasing the Flight DVD to every single new subscriber to the magazine, right? Which was huge for us, right?
Back then, magazines were it.
That was it.
Like it was TV and magazines. Like that was how you consumed your entertainment.
Do you think this was?
This is like 2000.
Okay, yeah.
But that was still the main way.
99, 2000.
Like if you wanted to educate yourself primarily, there's stuff on the internet, but it was still very much like I'm going to watch this DVD or this TV show or read this magazine, and that's how I'm going to learn. That's how I'm going to, get my fix if I can't actually be out in the field doing the thing.
I was born in '98, so
yeah,
grief.
Yeah. So yeah.
But I remember the final approach blinds. Like I remember seeing like old videos of like these big blinds, like you fit so many people in, but they were like one structure.
And so the video comes out, and it doesn't compete with Grounds and Duck Commander and Primos and the guys that are entrenched. No, it's not. But it's our foot in the door. Sure. We create some great relationships. But one of the things that an edge I felt like we had at that time was our production value.
Yeah.
We didn't have the name. We didn't have the notoriety, but I felt like we were beating them before it was even a thing,
the
right?
Quality of the production leveled up and beyond what they were doing.
Because what Wilbur used to always say, it ain't Hollywood, right? And Will Primos is a good buddy of mine, right? But that was Will's way of saying, I'm going to hunt, you video it, and you better get it.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Because I'm doing my thing.
Right.
And so we're not going to do these cutaway and I'll recreate. We're not doing that stuff.
You either got it or you didn't.
Right. And
there's no recreate.
And we were like, man, we're going to control. We can't control what the ducks do. We can't control what the geese do. But by God, we're going to control everything else.
Yeah.
So I felt like that's the edge. And I think that's why Darren, wanted our video. Chose did the cover, everything. It was just beautiful. So we get that out there, and all of a sudden I get a phone call, and it's Ron Latchaw at the time. It sold Final Approach, but Ron still was on for 5 years. So the group that bought him calls me and says, would you like to produce our television show called Final Approach TV? Do you know how much I knew about TV at the time? We barely got our first DVD out. It was by the grace of God we even figured out how to do that, right? Like we were teaching ourselves how to cut on Final Cut on our own.
Yeah.
And there wasn't YouTube where we could watch.
Right. It was just learn on the go, trial and error.
Yeah. And we were just like, we'd hit a button and we go, oh my God, did you see that? Right. And then we'd hit it again and again and again and again. Anyways, so but just the success that I've had in business to this point, I just said, yes, I would love to.
You didn't have doubt.
No, but
you just said, let's full send. There's no room to sit here and overthink it. Let's just go.
And here's why. And this is a huge turning point in my life because you brought it up earlier, and I took 20 minutes to answer your question, is that I had this burning desire. It was my number one goal. I've always been a big goal guy, and I still am today. And I've said this privately and publicly. People have interviewed me and asked me about success. And I think in life, people overcomplicate things. And I'll tell you why they do that. Because it's easy for people to believe things are so complicated they could never accomplish it. Do you understand?
Right. Yep.
And so it's easier for them to say, "Oh, I just don't understand that. It's just way too complicated." My number one key to success is goals. And I know that's anticlimactic. You want me to pull something from under the couch that's just like this Jedi mind trick, but it's not.
Yeah.
And it's goals and visualization. And when I would set a goal, you guys, and you've heard me talking about fantasizing and daydreaming, I would fixate on that. And I wouldn't just say, I want to make $1 million. That's not a goal. That's stupid, right? You've got to figure out how you're going to get there. Everybody wants to make $1 million. That's not a goal. But I would visualize, guys, and I could see things, like I could see how they were going to happen, almost to the point that sometimes it was like deja vu.
Yeah.
Because I've already smelt it. I've touched it. I knew. I felt it, right? And a burning goal, my number one goal at that time, so I don't get off too much on a tangent, was to replace my income in the mortgage lending business with something in the outdoor industry. I didn't want to go backwards in lifestyle. Just to say I'm in the outdoor industry. Because a lot of people that get in the outdoor industry, you guys, it's almost like becoming a priest. It's like a vow of poverty, man. You're not always doing what's best for your family. Oftentimes, dude, it's a super selfish endeavor, right? Unless you come up with the next 5-hub ground blind or whatever it is, right? This game-changing invention, it can be extremely lucrative. But in most cases, it's just a long road to hoe, and I didn't want to do that just so I could immerse myself in the outdoors. So that was a huge moment, and I didn't hesitate because, dude, it was right there, man. I was like, this can be real money. I didn't know there wasn't any money in outdoor television, but I thought, man, this is TV, right?
We're going to be millionaires.
Yeah, we're going to be, because at that time, if you looked at a lot of the way people acted and stuff, it looked like it.
A little deceiving, yeah.
It looked like it, right? And for me, there was no difference between Monday Night Football and watching Wilbur on Outdoor Channel. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
I didn't know the difference. And really, I mean, Will was wildly successful, but it was a result of owning Primos. It had really nothing to do with TV.
Right.
And so, no, I didn't hesitate. I said, absolutely, we can do television. I remember hanging up the phone and going, I don't know anything about this, man. I don't.
I love the no fear.
That's so great.
The no fear factor.
But we got this far.
Yeah.
So
why not?
We never knew
Keep
anything.
pushing. Yeah, just keep pushing.
I knew we needed a camera, but I got it. I said before I left, I thought I about to ask him how to turn it on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I felt like it was just going to be that next hurdle. But that's what I saw. I saw this exit, right? Like I saw this opportunity for this exit. So we go on, and I go on. I've got some other businesses going at the time. I'm not going to bore you with them, but one of them is important because it ties everything together. So a really good friend of mine, and he's actually does some of the same stuff you do, Matt Gindorf. He works for WTA. He's one of their senior consultants, and he wants to start this booking business, right? So I help him get started with some money. He was the brains, he was the horsepower, everything. I just got him some seed money to get going.
Right.
And so he's in the process, he's a young man, my same age, and he's finding outfitters. And that's the key, right? You've
For sure.
got to find the best ones. And so he picks up this whitetail hunting lodge in Southern Illinois. And he gives me a call and says, I've got an opportunity to film for a television show, and I should know this because it's my story. I can't remember what TV show it was, guys. I'm sorry. But he says, I have the opportunity to film at one of my outfitters for whitetail, and I really need this to go good, but the cameraman got sick. He said, can you come run camera for me? Whitetail hunting. And guys, it was he called me on Thanksgiving Day. So I had to be like, I got to go.
Yeah.
He comes down from Fargo, picks me up. We drive all night, and we get down to Southern Illinois, and it's a really badass setup, and like the claim to fame at that time, it's where Whitetail killed his first big deer on video.
Yeah.
Like his first big, I can't remember if it was 160, 170, whatever. And so I walk in and I meet this dude, that owns the place, and his name's Pete Alfano. And Pete is my same age. Yeah. And at this point, guys, I'm in my 30s, and I have no other way of saying this. I don't want it to sound arrogant, but I'm used to, at that point, being the youngest guy in the room.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I really am. I mean, and by quite a margin.
Sure.
Like, and so I meet this, and he's my exact same age, right? Yeah. And so you guys have all done this. Everybody listening to this done. You've gone somewhere and you've had this incredible time, and you met this person, this gal, whatever, and you have this awesome, but you never talk to him again.
Yeah.
Right? Like you, but it was awesome.
Sure.
But so Pete and I, that first night, we stay up all night. Maybe it was the second night. We stayed up all night, all the way till it was time to go hunting.
Jeez. Yeah.
Wow. And he owns a pizza place. His dad naturalized from Sicily. His dad dies when he's 16. So now here's this high school kid running this pizza place, right? Like he has no choice, but it's the old country kind of, right?
Yeah.
Like Italy, Sicily, like you don't go to.
Awesome. I didn't know that about Pete.
Yeah. So he's cool. Thrust into, making pizzas, right? So he's this young entrepreneur, and he's and let's face it, IRS, stop listening to this. He's in a cash business, right?
Right.
So he's flush with cash,
sure.
And and it happens to be in Pittsfield, Illinois. That's where he's got this, and I don't know what Pittsfield, Illinois is. I have no idea. And he's got this pizza place there, and he's just like geeking out because we're there filming for this TV show. I tell him what we're doing with Knock 'Em Down. We got these videos, and so one thing leads to another. And when we leave there, Pete and I agree to go into business together, but we don't really know what we're going to do.
What it's going to be. Yeah.
But we said we got to do something together, right? There's just too many synergies, and I hate cliches, but for lack of a better term. And so we don't really know what it is. And again, I'm thinking maybe it's one of those things where I'll leave and we'll never talk again.
Yeah. Right.
But one thing leads to another. We end up on this phone, and I just tell him, I said, we're trying to figure out, we had some couple different ideas, and you guys are idea guys. I listen to you out there when we're hunting. We'll make this and we could do that. Right. And that's what we were doing, but nothing was sticking. And I said, how about this, dude? Why don't you just buy into Knock 'Em Down Productions?
Yeah.
Why don't you just buy half of the company from me, and we'll start a whitetail line. You head up the whitetail division. I'll head up the waterfowl. We were coming out with our next video already. I said, we got this TV contract. We're going to be doing Final Approach television. We're getting these sponsors. And he was like, let's do it, So, and it was so funny because he's like, well, how much do you want? And I don't know. It's not like we had accountants do it or business. I just made up a number and I said, give me this much. He goes, okay. And
there was no valuation, nothing like I love it. It's so awesome.
And it was a decent amount of money, but he was just like, yeah, sounds good. Let's do it. Right.
That's awesome. Dude.
So now I got this business partner, and I kind of started telling you guys about this, but so Pete and I, we're getting going. We got the TV stuff. We've got to hire a legitimate full-time editor. This can no longer be this part-time side hustle. Right. So we go and we get Rob Snyder, great editor, ton of hit, great track record, all waterfowl stuff. We get him, we hire him, but what we didn't know, like I already alluded to, there wasn't much money in outdoor television. So it's like we were running into serious cash flow issues just to create content.
Right.
There was no profit in sight, guys.
And it was way more expensive to create content back then versus now, in my opinion.
Yeah,
totally different.
And I was joking with you earlier. We shot those first seasons on DSR 300s.
Yeah.
Now we've stepped up. We don't have the little XL one, but we're carrying these cameras that are like as big as that pillow. The batteries are, they're like 13 pounds each. And
can we take a second, just because this is kind of my specialty here, and it's nice to have someone else that is from that. Like, I never had to. My first camera was like the GoPro 1, and I thought that was the coolest thing ever. And that's still probably miles ahead of some of the stuff that was out back then. And like even then, I was like, this is kind of crap. And so I'm spoiled in the fact, and I did go to college. I agree with you with everything you say about college.
Yes.
I would have been further ahead in my
I'm
life.
glad
had
you
I-
do because it's actually a fact.
It is. Yeah, I would have been way further ahead in my career and my life without wasting those years. I think college might be valuable for connections, but that's about it, in my opinion.
That's
But-
a separate podcast. I'd love
Yes.
to do that.
Yeah, no, I'm down for it.
But in college, one of the things that they made us do, because there's this old crusty dude that wanted us to shoot on film, I guess out of like this angst that things are so easy now.
Mm-hmm.
And so we had to like cut up film, and I'm like, this is actually like one thing it made me conscious of is like burning footage, right? Like burning tape. Like you actually do. And it made me more conscious of like the shots that I made and stuff. But I just want to talk about real quick some of the technical stuff when you first started that season, learning that first of all.
Mm-hmm.
What's the like just some of the differences that you see now in like the rig that I'm running? Tiny, looks like it just takes pictures of the wife and kids, and compared to what you were doing then, what are some of the differences just out of
Well,
curiosity?
the single biggest difference, dude, is there's no auto button.
Yeah. So
I mean,
everything's
you
manual focus.
you had to know how to run a camera.
Yeah.
And like we had to white balance on cards.
Yep.
And we had to do it. Sometimes you had to do it by the hour. Sometimes by the half hour.
Yeah.
You know, so you're in a tree stand and you got the hunter holding up this, or in a waterfall blind holding up this white card. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like it was total man.
So
like-
there's
is that,
no
like, colored?
post-production white balance tool.
There was,
It
but
just probably didn't work.
yeah,
very well.
color correction was much more tedious. It wasn't nearly what it is today. You know,
Okay.
the tools didn't exist. Now you could do it, but whoever was doing post production would have threatened you with great bodily harm.
Yeah.
Yeah, for
You know,
sure.
it wasn't that quick. So you
Right.
needed to shoot
Okay.
about as good as you could shoot, you know. And the thing about I think the biggest advantage of SD versus HD was you could be a little out of focus, but the picture was so crappy that nobody knew it, right?
Yeah.
Like HD, you gotta nail it, right? Or you're
Right.
done. That
Right.
was the only advantage. But everything else, the size, the bulk, you know, the way we used to have to do it is, you know, we've got this guy, think about waterfall hunting.
Yeah.
He's holding a rocket propelled grenade, you know, I mean,
Exactly.
up like this, you know, and just the fatigue of it too, you know,
Yeah.
holding that
Oh,
shoulder
yeah.
mounted camera. And you know, so I think that the ease of use and the cheats that you guys have now
Yeah.
is the biggest difference. There was no tracking, there was no auto button, there was no auto white balance. So it was
Yeah.
I mean, you really had to be a technician, you know,
Yeah.
and you really had to understand your equipment. And at that time, lenses were the biggest. You know, having the we would run what's called doubler lenses. I don't even know if you know what that is, but it was a mechanical where you could take your lens from being a wide to mid lens, and you could flip it over and make it into a telephoto lens. You know, and it's actually like when you're getting your eyes checked. And that they slide those. That's what it was doing.
Okay.
It was
Got it.
flipping it over.
Interesting.
But there's no image stabilization.
Yeah.
So you had to be on sticks.
Everything's on
there was
sticks.
no way you could hold that if you were doubled in and even breathed on it.
Yeah.
I mean, it was
Yeah,
a
just-
bobble.
yeah.
You know
no
what I mean?
gimbals, huh?
No, there was no Ronin, no gimbals. I have to tell you a funny story someday about the first drone we bought at Whitetail Properties.
gosh.
And I'll just tease it. It was $25,000.
Holy crap.
And it took up the whole back of a Suburban.
Wow.
No
It
way.
was as big as this. I'm not kidding. It sits
Wow.
in Rusted Rooster's office today as like this conversation piece because it crashed so many times. I
Oh
just
my
told them just
gosh.
take it. Anyways, I won't get off on a tangent there. But.
But that's a really good point, and it sounds like that's what you did just with your hyper focus with the film. I mean, just hearing that, it sounds like you are the kind of guy that stays on top of whatever it is that you're focused on. Like a drone back then, $25,000.
That's crazy.
That's not like even compared to now. Some people are like, it's too expensive. $25,000 for a little bit of an edge, like
Yeah.
that's
And think about it was carrying a 25-pound camera.
Right.
And this thing, it was like an event. when we would take, like, you did it arbitrarily today, right? You didn't tell anybody. You just told this was an event. There was like a popcorn machine, a snow cone machine. People would stand around, and I'm not exaggerating. When we would fire this thing up, it had 5 motors, 1 in the middle and then 4 on the, and it would blow your head off.
Wow.
And then it would have these things called brownouts. Now imagine you got $25,000 and then you got $50,000 camera, and this thing does a brownout, which means it's crashing. That's a technical way of saying it's just going to crash.
Oh my god!
And it just crashed. Boom.
Oh no!
Yeah.
And there was no DJI. This was some dude building it in San Francisco.
This is like custom,
right?
And
it looked like an erector set. You know what I mean? And so then the thing's got to go back to San Francisco in this great big crate that
Holy
looks
cow.
like the Ark of the Covenant was in it. You know what I mean? It's got to go there, and then it's gone for a couple weeks, and it comes out, and then and then brownout. Thing crashes again.
back to San Fran. Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
Did that
DJI didn't even exist, guys. It wasn't even a company.
Yeah.
Did that drone though, and other like tech advances that you stayed on top of, do you think that gives you an edge being on top of that kind of stuff in the film industry? Like,
Absolutely.
the next angle, like, because it's always about like something that people haven't seen, which is getting harder and harder these days. But at that time, that's a big,
that's what we couldn't do. I remember just switching to HD, right, from DSRs, and you got to remember, guys, you paid $50,000. We had what's called a DX cam, which was that was our crown jewel, and at the time it was 900 lines of resolution, so it was almost HD. And I remember saying, "Did you shoot it on the DX?" You know what I mean? Like, it was a big deal.
Right.
So we got this camera, $75,000. Now a XL1 or what was the first Canon HD camera?
I think it's right at XL1.
No, that was the one I bought from Jeff. Anyway, some HD camera comes out that's $10,000. So we're going to switch all that over, which is a huge investment, but we're just mothballing because they're literally worth nothing, guys.
Yeah.
I remember saying to the guy we were buying our cameras, "Can we trade them in?" He said, "Your best bet's to try to sell them to a museum."
Really?
Right? Like, that was it. And I was like, well, I'm not wasting my time with that, right?
Yeah. Wow.
But anyways, so getting back to the, so Pete becomes a partner and Knock 'em Down, and we're having these cash flow issues. We're producing TV. We just don't have the money that we need. So Pete says, we should buy a farm. And remember, guys, I'm in the lending business.
Right.
So what am I thinking? Let's borrow money.
Yeah.
Right? Let's borrow money like normal people. I said, Pete, we need money. We don't need to spend more money. And he's like, yeah. He goes, let's just buy a farm. We'll fix it up, flip it, and we'll take that cash. That way we don't have to borrow any money, pay any interest. And I was like, you're not making any sense, dude. But if you're convinced, let's do it, right?
Right.
So we put money in, we buy this farm, and we do exactly that. And here's how we did it, guys, because this is really where Whitetail Properties is born. And at the time, fixing up a farm is way different than it is today. It didn't involve nearly the intensity level that it has. We would fix a creek crossing. We'd put in a couple roads. We'd put a gate on the fence. We'd plant 2 food plots, and we'd put up a bank spline.
Yeah.
And then it was fixed up. But at the time, guys, nobody was doing that,
Right.
guys.
Right.
So that was really tricked out.
Sure.
And then, so we've got this buyer pool. And where is the buyer pool? It's Pete's clients that are coming from, they're coming from Miami, they're coming from South Carolina, they're coming from New York, they're all coming to Southern Illinois to hunt, and they're killing big deer that they'd never even, and so guys would say, like, man, I'd love to own something one day, right?
Right.
And so so we've got trail cameras. Again, this is so fun telling you the story.
This is
awesome. I feel like an old dude with you guys. So this is at the time a trail camera is an actual 35 millimeter camera, guys.
Oh my gosh.
So we hang it on a tree. It can
Shooting on film?
Shooting on film. It can take 35 pictures.
Jeez.
And so we would hang this camera, and then we would get the film, and we drive to Walmart, and we go to the 30-minute, right?
Oh my gosh.
And then we're just waiting. We're just standing there like this. We're just waiting, right? We're just waiting. just waiting. Finally, they grab them. We'd run out to the truck, and you'd go through pictures, and you're like, squirrel, right? And then in your head, you're going, okay, I'm at that.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I got 29 left. Oh, and then you'd be like, there he is.
Yeah.
And so what we were doing, guys,
That's
we'd
so awesome.
We'd hang these trail cameras, and then that guy from New Jersey that said he'd love to own something, we would show him 5 trail camera pictures, and we'd show him we found this shed antler. Here's the 5 trail camera pictures of the deer that are alive, and that was a big deal. We were the first. I believe we were the first to start selling. Who gives? I was almost going to swear. We'll keep this PG. Nobody
Look at the
cares.
restraint.
Nobody cares about big dead deer.
Yeah.
They're dead.
They're gone.
Yeah.
So here are the ones that are alive, right? This one, this one, this one, this one. And here's this, 70-inch side we found.
Yeah.
So now we're not selling what's the history. We're selling
What's there
what's
now.
there. What's there now. And by the way, we planted this clover and put up this blind, and it can be all yours. And you guys, we crushed it. I mean,
I remember watching the growth of it. It was unreal.
we all of a sudden now we had the capital, right? And I was like, holy cow, that really worked. And he said, yeah. And
So real quick, so y'all bought the farm. How long did it take from purchasing the farm, doing your flip, to sell and getting that cash flow to put back into?
Well, at that time, you guys, imagine nobody's doing what you're doing. Think about that for a second. Nobody's doing it. Right. Nobody's doing it. So it was very, 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 very fast.
Yeah.
And at the time, before deregulation or regulation, prior to 2008, these banks were letting us, and this is illegal now, but at the time, we were doing 0 down ag loans. So we didn't have to make a payment for a year. So all we had to do is get that thing sold, and we never made a payment.
Wow.
Dude.
No way.
0 down, low interest.
That's
and
awesome.
Just on ag loans, right? So what Pete said, okay, so we get all this cash, and he's like, okay, now we have the money to keep Knock 'em Down going, keep Final Approach TV going. Now we're going to take this money, and we're going to buy another farm.
Yeah.
So we did. And again, back to my, former life in mortgage lending, I've looked at thousands of settlement statement, guys. It was my job. That's what I did. I went to, go to close, make sure it's everything I promised the client, everything, all the fees, everything's there. And so I'm looking at these settlement statements, and I'm adding up in my head, and I said to him, we're driving down the road in his pickup truck, and I said, dude, this is the best way of making money I've ever seen when you consider your return on investment and your level of exposure, your level of risk. There wasn't any. You have a hard asset. We're not putting anything down. I was like, there's no employees, none of that, no buildings, nothing. I'm like, this is incredible. And so that night, and this is really cool, because this is how things can happen. And I know people want it to be more romantic than it is going to be when I give you the aha moment. We're sitting on a couch exactly like we are right now, him and I.
Yeah.
And we just got done eating, and I looked at him and I said, dude, what if somebody started a real estate company that specialized in what we're doing, and we teach 1 million people how to do it? Like, what if we did that, right? And because Whitetail Properties was really find a need and fill it, because our experience at the time with real estate agents was like about as low as you get. I mean, like used car salesmen. And not because they were bad people or they were sharks. It was because they didn't know what they were doing, guys.
Yeah.
The only way before Whitetail Properties, and this is an audacious statement, but it, in my humble but accurate opinion, is fact. Whitetail Properties changed the way people buy and sell land. We forever changed it, and here's why. When we would buy land at that time, the only way a real estate agent or a landowner had the ability to put a value on their property was based on the fertility of the soil or the maturity of the timber.
Right.
They put 0 value on the wildlife living on and using the property, with the exception of Texas. Texas was 20 years ahead of us, and with the exception of some waterfall ground, right?
Yeah.
Like those clubs.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But just regular old farms and ranch, nobody put value on that.
And I want to interject here because I remember, I vividly remember when all this was going on. And I remember you were just in one state originally.
Mm-hmm.
And I was the guy that was like, I was the dreamer too. It's like, gosh, one day I would love to own my own place. And so I was getting on Google at the time or whatever it was, I can't even remember, and researching like, wildlife or like hunting property real estate. And that's how I first found you guys and saw what you're doing. And it's like the explosion of the company was insane. But you're right. There's a few little like mom and pop type, real estate agencies that would do that in Texas. And then there would be like these little random waterfowl properties that you might find over in Louisiana and Arkansas. But nobody was putting that valuation on the land beyond just ag, essentially.
Right.
And so it was uncharted territory.
And so we were selling, and one of the biggest scams next to college is appraisals, right? People say, well, let's get an appraisal. And we work with several billionaires, right? And when I've been fortunate to be able to get around them. And when I do, and you guys can tell I talk a lot, I've dominated you guys this entire time.
And we're letting you roll, bud.
I have 2 ears and one mouth, right? Get around them, I want to know. Do you know how much those guys cared about an appraisal? They could care less.
None.
Well, the best appraisal in anything, if you're going to sell anything, is what somebody's willing to pay for it.
Right.
And then somebody will have the audacity to tell you it's not worth that. People have told me that 100 times. It was not worth it. I said, you want to bet?
Yeah.
They just bought it, dude.
Yeah. It was worth it to somebody.
Yes.
And that's all that matters.
And so what we were doing is we were selling these farms and the people weren't being taken advantage of because they had, you guys, listen to me when I tell you this, no other way of doing it. No way.
Yeah.
If you're in Florida in 2002, how would you ever find a hunting property in Pike County, Illinois?
Can't.
I mean, you're going to open up the white pages?
No. I mean, it's like what I just said. I was trying to research it online. Bam, Whitetail Properties pops up. You found a problem, created a solution.
So that's the story. I could go more in depth into it, but that's the story of how it got started. It was find a need and fill it. A couple of the things that I think your listeners would find fascinating without giving away too much of the secret recipe is that when we created Whitetail Properties, it was a brand-centric business. It was built on brand. It was not built on the service. We wanted to create a communal fan base to help carry out our message, and our message was simple: own land to recreate on, and it can be one of the best investments you've ever made. And the thing is, I want you guys to think about this, and I want you to use your parents as a frame of reference in most cases. If they would have invested every single dollar into real estate versus the Wall Street casino, their wealth would be, and look at any business, any real business. Oftentimes, you look at General Motors, right? What is the single biggest asset on their balance sheet? The real estate that their plants sit on.
Yeah.
If you see what I'm saying? I mean, that value,
Right.
it rivals their vehicle inventory. Right. You know what I mean? That hard asset, right? So, and it's super cool to think about, like, somebody taking their kid and shooting their first turkey, or them shooting this great big deer. That's really fun, but we're changing lives when you can help somebody create these unbelievable investments. And guys, I could tell you thousands of stories that we've done that. We've taken dudes just like us. They buy a 40, and then they bought a 60, and then they bought an 80, and then they bought a 120. And now some of those guys own thousands of acres, and they were iron workers. They were welders. They weren't these, some are, but not all of them. I mean, they're just regular dudes like us, and they just work that path, so that's something that is so special to me. And I knew that if we didn't build a brand, if we didn't build this big communal fan base, we wouldn't ever get anywhere. We would just be another real estate company with maybe a little twist on how we market it. But we needed to tell that story over and over and over and over. And I've said this publicly now for 17 years, so I'll give this away, secret sauce. And you guys know one of the biggest compliments you can get in life or in business is to be copied.
Sure.
And we've been copied hundreds and hundreds of times. But you know what? Every single company that's ever copied us, nobody has the guts to do what we've done, and that is to spend the money to create content because there isn't a direct ROI.
Right.
Here's the thing. When the bean counters do all this, they want, and they look at how much, and it could gag an elephant what we spent on in 17 years creating content. You can't tie a direct ROI.
Right.
But right here in my gut, we would not be where we are today. Right. Guys, think about this for a second. In 17 years, we go from 0 to 17. We sell about 6,000 farms a year.
That's wild.
Think about that. Yeah. I don't know. I'm not really super good at math in my head, but that's a bunch a day.
It's a lot.
And you can't do that without creating this, this brand first, right? Like that has a mission that's greater than. And what blows my mind is all the other real estate companies out there. If you look at Whitetail Properties, we have like 600,000 followers on Facebook or on social media, right? Like our collective aggregate following. The next, and you look at companies, their balance sheets, they could buy and sell us several times. Century 21, Remax, whatever. They don't have anywhere even close, not even a third. And why is that? Because all they do is say, look at my listings, look at my listings, look at my listings. Nobody cares,
right?
Unless they have the financial, unless they have the financial wherewithal or need for that service that moment. But listen, if you add value to people's lives, if you help them be better hunters, better land managers, when they do, they'll come find your listings,
right?
And if you just happen to have 3,000 of them, that helps too, right?
Exactly.
Like so.
Such an amazing story, man. There's so much about it that I appreciate, and I'm sure we could all ask so many questions right now, but it really is incredible. I think too, one of the biggest takeaways I have from listening to this story and how you've been able to accomplish this with your team and the people that's kind of surrounded you and supported you throughout it is that there was never a moment where it's like, hey, we're going to sacrifice these things that we know to be true, that qualitative data, that feeling in your gut that's like, I know this is right. And we may not be able to prove it with data, and the bean counters, like you said, may not be able to connect the dots and say, yep, that makes sense. But when you are able to find that balance of, okay, we're passionate about this, we know this to be true, we believe in it, and we're going to help people. Like we have that genuine want to help people achieve their dreams too, along with ours. Good things just happen. I mean, there's obviously some of the quantitative data that has to take place, and you got to run a business accordingly. But when you can find the balance between the two, I think Whitetail Properties is a true success story and showing what the potential is out there.
Well, I'm super proud of what we've accomplished. And I was honored to be able to tell this story in this setting because although I've told it several times, I've never been able to tell it to a waterfowl audience.
For sure.
So like if I were to tell that story to other people, they don't know Tom Dokken. They don't know Lee Trost. They don't know Final Approach. They don't know Ron Latcha. They don't know how, integrated whitetail and waterfowl were because we made that transition,
For sure. Well, I think what's cool too, Paul, it's like, it started with a passion for waterfowling. Like you're going after kind of similar to what we're doing right now. Like we're wanting to tell this really cool waterfowl journey, and do it through, content that we hope resonates with people and inspires them to go and do more and, achieve whatever their dreams are too. And you just don't know where it might take you. And so in your pursuit of just loving waterfowl and then wanting to film content and have fun doing it, good things happen. You surrounded yourself with the right people. Just instead of being tentative and being like, man, I don't know, that might be a bad idea, I think I'm out. Just went for it.
Right.
And I think that's where people fail. They can't take that leap.
Yeah.
And what's so cool about, and people are going to listen to this all over the world, I realize that, but the vast majority of the people listening, you're Americans, and you've had the opportunity, well, all you guys have, to travel outside of the United States. And I think we really take for granted that being born in America, we won the lottery.
Yeah. For sure.
Just being born here.
Man,
right?
and people don't realize it. We really, really have. Yeah.
And so, and what I want everybody to think about right now, if you're, you're living in America, you can do whatever you want to do. You don't need an advanced degree. If you got one, that's great, and I'm proud of you, and that could help you, but you don't have to have it. You don't even have to have capital. What you have to have is a goal and then the relentless pursuit of that goal, and you will figure it out. Right. But this is very, very important, guys, and this, I'm talking to you as much as I am the audience.
Sure.
It is, if you really want to get to where you're at, and let me digress real quick. I want to give you, and my beautiful bride's sitting here with us right now, but I want to give you a glimpse into what a one of my days is like, and this I have never said publicly. When I wake up in the morning, most days, guys, I gotta pinch myself.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like, it's that good, right? And what I mean by that, it's not private jets and Ferraris, and it's not that. That's not. It's the ability to do what I want when I want, right? Mm-hmm. Each one of us is different. If I wanted to go and start another business or pursue a more active role in Whitetail Properties, I could make a lot more money. Mm-hmm. But I knew from creating goals exactly where I wanted to be, and at that point I was going to make every decision based on the quality of my life, not the money that I make. Yeah. And I'm not judging you. What I learned about a lot of the biggest guys we work with at Whitetail Properties, you know what their real love is? It isn't whitetails. It isn't waterfowl. It isn't anything other. Their actual vocation is making money.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's what they love, and I'm not judging them. I just didn't want to be them.
Sure.
Right?
Well, you wanted to know what enough felt like.
Right.
Like you have
and
awesome.
just to be able to, one of my biggest goals was to be able to roll over, not roll out.
Yeah.
And if that means we're getting up at 4 a.m, I'm not saying I want to sleep in, but that's my choice.
Sure.
Yeah. I wanted to be able to make that choice. But if you want that, you can't do what all of your buddies are doing.
Sure.
Right? Like you can't do exactly what they're doing and expect different results. You have to learn something, and this is very, very difficult, but it's called delayed gratification.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And if you put in the work, you work diligently at something, and if you're fortunate enough to work hard at something that you love, all the better. You got a much higher chance. But understand what delayed gratification is. Give some things up. When we started Whitetail Properties, guys, I won't go into why it was, but we didn't make money for 2 years. So everything I had was in that business. Guys, I was so broke, I had to borrow money from my mommy. I was 33 years old. I had to get a loan from my mom, and I paid her back, obviously.
Sure. Yeah.
But do you know how humbling that is to have to call mommy and ask her for money? Give me a break. I didn't have Dish Network. I didn't have internet. I didn't have a fancy phone. I didn't have all those things. I didn't go on vacation. Mm-hmm. And the reason that I told you what a day is like for me now, that I literally have to pinch myself and say, is this real? Mm-hmm. I could see it.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. And you can't get there if you're going to buy a four-wheeler. You can't get there if you keep going on. Don't go on these crappy vacations. Build something great and then go on unbelievable. Come to Alberta. Come to Chinook Waterfowl. Don't come for 3 days like everybody else. Come for a week like we did, right?
Exactly.
But you can't do that unless you're willing to sacrifice, guys. And if you're going to build something great, everybody out there, I just want to inspire you to be the best of whatever you're at. And you don't have to come up with the next Whitetail Properties. What you have to do is be the best at whatever you are doing and have goals and understand where you are going. Because if you don't plan where you're going, you may not like where you end up. And that's a fact. A lot of people are just, and when I talk about goals, I'm not talking about, and I'm not trying to hijack this waterfowl podcast into a success podcast, but I want people to have
great.
these experiences. And you've had experiences, dude, that are just unbelievable. There's so many cool things to do in the world, right? Like it's just, and it's short. Like I'm 48 right now, and I'm starting to get more real with, you know, am I a third of the way? Am I half away? We don't know, right? Like, so I'm starting to get like real with what are all the things that I want to do and what I want to accomplish. So, you know, just, but it's out there, and it's out there for the taking. You just got to be willing to do the work, do some sacrifices. But, and you know, if you've always, you said you've always dreamed of owning your own property, and we're talking to you about it right now. You know, I mean, you know, make some sacrifices, save up for that down payment, buy that first farm, fix it up, pour your heart and soul into that place. And I promise you, somebody's going to buy it from you, and then do the next one. You know, you can get there, man. That's what's so cool about America.
I love it. No, I mean, I hope that I would actually encourage everybody that has listened to it up to this point, go back and listen to it maybe even a second time, because what I think you'll find in kind of reliving this story that Paul's experienced in his life is, you know, again, like be a dreamer and don't be afraid to take risks. Don't be afraid to press pause on certain aspects of your life in order to achieve something greater, something more meaningful. And yeah, set the goals to get there. I mean, I think there's a lot of inspiration, a lot of what you shared, and I'm grateful that you're willing to share it with us. It's pretty awesome.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to tell the story, man. It was a cool way to tell it. You know, I absolutely. You know, reliving it in my mind, it wasn't, you know, it's so crazy how the two were so connected that, you know, without the waterfowl part of my life, I wouldn't be here, you know.
Well, it's crazy. I mean, and I could sit here and keep talking, but I think we're like an hour and a half into this thing. It's like, I knew this would potentially be a multi-part one, which unfortunately we don't have time since us three are leaving tomorrow. But we're gonna have you on again. And it sounds like Paul, you're kind of getting to, you know, 17 years of doing Whitetail Properties, you know, doing the whitetail thing, but getting more and more back into waterfowl. And I know we've talked about a few trips that we know we would love to do with you and have you along on our journey in the road to 100 too. So I'm looking forward to it. Right. We'll have to do more podcasting. This is like part one, and then there's going to be probably a delay to part 2s and 3s with Paul on the podcast. So I'm really looking forward to having you back on, hopefully.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity, and I already told you need an extra gun. My wife and I are ready.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. we there's all kinds of things on the bucket list that you guys are going to do, and I'm super proud about what you guys are doing. I think it's unique. I think it's cool. And I wish you all the best of luck.
Awesome.
Yeah. Thank you for telling your story. That was
that was awesome. Yeah. I've it's rare that you can feel, of course I'm here live, but I guarantee you, like, just listening to this, the energy through audio, like, Paul brings a lot of energy. That's awesome.
Definitely.
So on the note of world travel and bucket lists, we always ask our final 2 questions. What bird species?
We're already an hour and a half into this. You want to go 3 hours? Keep going.
We're going to keep these 2 questions short. And then we're going to go live them with you.
Yeah,
how about that?
That's right. So out of all the waterfowl species in the world, which one is on your bucket list, slot number 1?
Probably king.
Okay. Now, second question. Where in the world, take species out of it, adventure aspect, place aspect, whatever it is for you, where in the world would you like to hunt waterfowl the most?
That I haven't?
That you haven't.
Oh, man, that's a hard one. I mean, it's hard not to give you this top 3.
Talk it out. What is the top 3? Let's talk it out.
Just give us top 3.
Well, I already said king, so I'd like to do Island X. You know, I'd like to do that. I've been to Kodiak a few times, but never went out and did the king eider thing. And you know, it's kind of a broken record, but I'd love to do the Greenland thing.
Sure.
And my final one, which isn't, I don't know if it's technically waterfowl. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'd love to go to Iceland. And I'd love to do the puffin thing over hand carved decoys.
Yes,
dude, we're 2 for 3.
We have to do puffins now. We've been saying the same thing. That is huge on our list.
And we were So one podcast, one trip ago, we were with Cole Townsend. Same thing.
Yeah,
Like
same
everyone's
thing.
got a hankering for some puffins, I
Yeah,
guess.
those puffins just
Yeah.
we need to get it.
It's too funny.
Yeah, I'd
man.
really like to do that. And then, just so I'll wind this up for all of us. I talked about goals and how important that's been in my life. And goals is still a huge part of my life. When I was in the hunt, building the business, like grinding it out, I was reviewing my goals daily.
Yep.
Now I'm to the point where I'm reviewing them more on a monthly basis. But one of my huge goals for my wife and I is I would love to spend a month of every year in South America. Yeah. Whether that's Paraguay, Uruguay. I mean, it'd be easy. She hasn't been to Argentina, but she's gonna love BA. That's gonna be super easy to say. All right, let's spend 2 days BA in the front. Well, then we'll go to Estancias and then a couple days of BA on the backside. But that's a huge goal for me, guys, that I'm not there yet. I haven't got there because there's some other goals that I want to, that coincide with that. But I'd love to be able to spend, let's just say every June in South America. Right. I mean, it's just awesome. It's a special, special place.
Absolutely. No, I love it. Well, thanks again, man. And for those of you, again, that don't know much about Whitetail Properties, go check out their website, check it out.
And we sell a bunch of waterfall properties.
Yes. I mean, if you're in the market, absolutely.
We sell all kinds of
They've got all sorts of good waterfowl properties. Stay tuned. I think we've got an awesome episode with some great waterfowl hunting here in Alberta that we shared with Paul, and stay tuned for some future episodes with Paul and Rebecca that we're looking forward to in the future. Thanks, buddy.
Thank you, guys.